I am excited to announce our next speaker, Hannah Austin. Hannah is a best-selling author, global podcast host, and the visionary CEO behind She Shatters. After experiencing burnout firsthand, she embarked on a transformative journey to found She Shatters in 2021. Her mission is to champion mental health advocacy for employees and managers alike. Hannah's profound insights and impactful initiatives have garnered attention from major media outlets including ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox News, solidifying her reputation as a leading voice in the realm of workplace wellness and organizational culture. Please join me in welcoming the energetic Hannah.
This is for you, Lydia. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and be your last presenter. I realize I'm standing between you, a nice day, and happy hour, so thank you so much for still being here. I want to talk today about navigating the future of HR, bridging the skills gap, and combating burnout. My name's Hannah Austin. I'm the founder and CEO of She Shatters, and I want to share my story with you later so that you understand the importance of me being on this stage and knowing what it's like to burn out firsthand and be in front of you and say what actually it took to get on this stage. So today we're going to do a deep dive into the workforce. What's been happening post-shutdown, post-COVID? What's going on with this new normal? We're going to tap into workplace well-being. I'm going to talk about my story and some strategies for recovery, not only organizationally, but individually. We're going to tap into that identifying the skills gap, how to close that skills gap, what you really need to know as an HR manager and leader. And then I'm going to dive deep into partnerships and collaborations, because let's face it, we can't do it alone. And lastly, I'm a big proponent of rewards and recognition, so someone's going to walk out of here with a really cool and fun prize. So let's talk about the workforce. You guys know firsthand that with increasing technology, increasing changes, are we wearing a mask, are we not wearing a mask, what policy are we doing today, that this has caused a major skills gap, right? We had the Great Resignation, we had the Great Stagnation, but all this has really resulted in is increased change fatigue, and let's face it, with so many unclear plans, several of us have burned out. But the future is bright. And I know, and speaking to many of you during lunch, and as I'm kind of winding my way through the audience here, that the key is really partnerships and support, which is the key to success. Now, I'm a little bit different speaker in that I'm going to tell you exactly what to do to start bridging the skills gap in your organization. I'm not going to talk about the future, what could be. I'm going to give you the actual blueprint that has been working in thousands of organizations that I've been working with since I burned out and left my previous job, and what you can do and how you can implement that. Workplace well-being has been kind of the word of the year, right? DEI, workplace well-being initiatives, burnout. But despite our efforts, ultimately 69% of employees are saying that their mental health has either stayed the same or worsened in the past year. And this is from Calm. Employees are saying that they're feeling underwater, right? They're stressed out not only about their workload and workflow, but they're stressed about their finances. And we feel this firsthand when those of us are checking our stocks or trying to figure out, like, what's actually happening? Can we afford to get plus in our gas tanks, or can we afford to go out to dinner anymore, right? This is a huge topic for ourselves and our employees. And I know firsthand what the cost is, financially and physically, in neglecting our well-being. When I saw this statistic, my jaw hit the floor. 20% of the payroll budget each year goes to the cost of voluntary turnover due to burnout alone. Can you imagine what we would do with those payroll funds, who we could hire, what we could do, if we actually implemented what we need to do to help keep our employees mentally safe? Before I dive deep, you're probably wondering, who's this girl? She's not even 5 feet tall. Why is she wearing a bright pink jacket like many of us? So I want to tell you a story, and it's a very vulnerable one. In the fall of 2020, I hit the darkest moment of my life. I was supposed to be getting ready for a Zoom call, but instead I lie on the bathroom floor, and I have to say it, I was contemplating ending my life. Now, I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm telling you this because I am an energetic, bright human being, and I had been for the last 20 years. But I had been so focused on one foot in front of the other, paving the way for my career, trying to reach that status of COO of one of the largest healthcare organizations in Oregon. I was close. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I didn't raise the white flag. I didn't say I was hurting because my job as a leader, so I thought, was to be an empath and help and put my team first. So I didn't do anything. I put on my makeup, I put on my clothes, I got on the Zoom call, and ta-da, the quick-witted career woman was on the stage. 2 weeks later, I collapsed at Sunnyside Hospital, the hospital that I was managing nurses and doctors in during COVID. And I remember with the IV on my arm looking up at the doctor, and he said, since I had managed him for 4 years in internal medicine, Hannah, you need to put yourself first. You need to take time and take stock and figure out what's truly, truly important to you. So I did. I walked away from a 20-year career at an organization that I had vested my time, blood, sweat, and tears in, and I started a new life. I did it to save myself. Now you can imagine, after I retired at 41 years old, it was a big decision. My husband and I talked. Could we do it financially? What could actually happen? The plan was for me to just take time off and figure out what was next. I couldn't do that where I was currently at. But you can imagine a young girl at 21 years old, her first job managing 100 employees. I had had 2 cell phones on both ears for 20 years of my career. I was addicted to working. It was my identity. So at that moment, I realized, I don't know what I'm going to do next, right? I'm up a creek with no paddle. So I reached out to my community. I messaged people on LinkedIn. Many of you are the audience today. I didn't know you from Adam. I asked you and I said, what should I do next? What do you need during the pandemic? And they said to me, Hannah, you need to start a burnout prevention company. And I thought to myself, oh God, that sounds horrible. I'm burned out. And they said, you are an innovator. You know what it takes. You have the vision. Start a podcast. So I started small. I started a podcast, quickly went viral, spread internationally. The topic was paramount and people were listening. Then they said, you should write a book. Well, I had always dreamed of writing a book. So I actually took the transcripts, used AI, turned the transcripts into a manuscript. I infused my personal journal. I launched it on Amazon last year on January 5th, and I'm happy to say 10 days later, it became an Amazon bestseller. Now, I'm not saying to brag, I'm not explaining this to you to say, quit your job, write a book. I'm saying that sometimes burnout isn't about being overworked. Sometimes it's about being underpurposed. And I've spent a lot of my time today talking with many of you about the importance of tapping into what you truly want to do and what lights you up from the inside out, right? The word is no longer burnout. It's igniting yourself, figuring out what lights that fire within you. Because you see, the job is not always the problem. I spent years, and I hear people in my clientele say to me, Hannah, I'm overworked, or it's the company, or it's this and that. Yes, there's policy and procedures that are outdated and that need to grow with us. But the reality is, the job is just a symptom of the problem. And what I realized was I wasn't good at really acknowledging and knowing what is burnout and how to spot the signs and symptoms. So today, we'll just tap briefly on recognizing burnout for those of you who have your head down and you're focusing on what's in front of you. The first is reducing personal accomplishment, feeling like what you're doing doesn't matter. You don't know your why anymore. The second one is physical symptoms. At the age of 41, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. When I ended up leaving my job, my whole leadership team was on blood pressure medications. Emotional exhaustion, feeling emotionally drained, cynical, starting to feel a sense of detachment. And then lastly, depersonalization, and this is the most important one. Feeling disconnected from others. Feeling like, are you actually feeling aligned with your job and your behavior? And ultimately, do you have a negative attitude? Have you become that complainer at work that you're like, oh God, here they come, right? I need to take a break, right? I'm gonna go to the bathroom, so sorry, I can't talk to you. The biggest piece here is those physical symptoms, right? Really recognizing what's happening in your body before you wind up on the bathroom floor or the emergency room like me. A lot of HR professionals and managers and leaders, they forget that there's actual phases of burnout and there's actual opportunity for intervention, right? That's why you guys are here. How can you help yourself and your employees? The first one is that honeymoon period. You start a new job. I've talked to a couple of you. You're super excited. You're like, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to make a difference. We're going to have the best EAP ever. And then reality starts to set in. 9 months to 12 months, you're in your job. Your first project is over. And you're feeling a sense of onset stress, stagnation. You're starting to get irritable, right? Intervention phase 1 and 2 is key. This is an opportunity for you as a leadership team to say and look at your employee roster. Who is in buckets 1 and 2? This is your chance to intervene, right? Chronic stress, when that starts to set in, this is a real issue. You're starting to neglect personal needs. Are people showing up on Zoom with, their hair looking a mess, right? Are you not sure if they're wearing pants, right, on Zoom? Like, what's actually happening? And then you go into level 4, right, which is burnout, where you're apathy, exhaustion. You can barely decide what to eat for dinner. You're getting home and you're like, I've hit the wall. You're using coffee in the morning to energize yourself, and you're using wine and Netflix to satisfy that craving inside you. And lastly, habitual burnout. When you think about phase 5, when you're sitting at your desk, I want you to think of me on that bathroom floor, in that emergency room. Do not let it get to this point. This is a time when you have someone that cares about you and loves you and says, it is not worth it, right? So take a picture of this. These are actual phases of intervention for you as an HR professional to say, either this is me or this is someone that I know and love and I want to reach out for help. When I ask organizations and employees, what is underneath the burnout? What is underneath? There's always a reason. And they say to me, the number one issue is financial woes. We're feeling top stressors. We can't make our mortgage, Hannah. We can't get gas. That's a number one issue right now in 2024. Number 2, no surprise, technology is contributing to burnout. How many of us are addicted to our phones? I know I am, right? And those notifications, seeing that red dot or hearing that notification, it's like a rat with cheese, right? Number 3, and I will say as a manager for 20 years, managers are the problem and they're the solution. And when you have managers in your organization that are burned out and you're telling employees not to burn out or how can I help you burn out or not burn out, and they're looking at you like I'm gonna listen to her, right? So really taking a look and investing time and space in reskilling and upskilling for those managers to know what skills do they actually need to move forward. And number 4, I know we have a lot of guys in the room, but for the women in your life, this is a good one for you. Women need more mental health support for those stages in life. 2023, the word was burnout. 2024, wearing pink today, menopause, right? Those EAP people in the room, if you do not have fertility support, menopause support, groups for women, EAP groups for women, you are behind the times. So number 4, thank you, number 4 is getting on board with this, right? And lastly, this may be a popular or unpopular opinion depending on who I'm touching today, but Gen Z. How many of us who have been in our established careers for so long, you see a brand new person coming in with new energy and you're like, good luck, I give you the 6 to 9 months, right? But the reality is Gen Z is actually leading change for the future. They want to work on their own terms. They want to work from wherever they want to work. And instead of resisting that, I would say, similar to AI with the women that talked before, get on board and listen to what they have to say because they are actually learning to live before working. Right? Most of us worked to live. One of the things I did with one of my organizations was taking that low-hanging fruit of employee feedback. And I promised you when I started today that I'm going to give you actual applicable tools to use to apply to your everyday life. Number 1 was financial literacy. Employees were saying to an organization that I'm working with, we're having issues with financial literacy, budgeting, knowing what our actual T-row price statement means, right? Instead of going to the HR person. And so we actually partnered with a financial institution, brought them to the organization, put them up in a break room, scheduled Zoom meeting slots, and employees booked and went over their finances, their budgets, they made a plan. The kicker of this and the added kicker of this was they invited their spouse, a friend, someone else. This cost us nothing. It cost us the conference room and an idea and collaboration. And when we surveyed staff, they said, thank you so much. And if you remember on that checkbox, number 1, financial literacy. So this is an opportunity of collaboration, support, and bridging the gap on those ideas. So some strategies for recovery from burnout. On your tables, there should be a workplace wellness tool guide that my company put together. There may be only a couple copies. I think, Nikki, we can maybe pass those out or send them via email. Okay. Great. So this is a copy of that, and it's around, I'm not going to read the slide for you, but it's around being open and honest about the benefits you have and don't have, about workplace wellness strategies and care that you offer as an organization. It's also about creating a safe space, giving people time, 5-10 minutes during the huddle, to talk about what's really going on. And I loved what the speaker just said before me about showing and saying, look guys, I'm on antidepressants. When you said that, it hit home. It made me realize that we are all human, right? So giving employees the space to be able to have those conversations is key. I will tell you, my first job as a speaker was the organization that I burned out from. It was a very cathartic moment, but that was a moment they signaled to me and they said, I'm listening. I'm so sorry. What can we do to make it better? And so sharing your story about burning out or your experience with EAP or what really worked, or maybe there's a therapist that you work with that's really good and nobody else is taking therapy appointments because, let's face it, our benefits don't always cover those. Maybe sharing a daycare. Whatever it is, creating and sharing examples and resources. And then lastly, I have this target marked, workplace flexibility. This does not mean working from home, right? It means employees, often when they burn out, they feel like they have no sense of control. They just want some flexibility into their day-to-day life. So that should be a topic at your next management or leadership or HR meeting is, how can we build in some flexibility into our employees' day-to-day life? And how can we make it better? So take a picture of this, because this is the anti-burnout checklist, right? This is an opportunity, this is a quick meeting for you guys. Schedule a meeting with your team or whatever else and say, we're gonna do the anti-burnout checklist. This is also in my HR guide. I take quality breaks, so you're just going down. This is a good gauge for you. Am I burning out? What's going on in my life? What areas do I need to address? I wanna tap into, I think it's number 4, I spend time prioritizing my joy outside of work. I was just on a phone call with a company 2 days ago about they are starting to have benefits for guitar playing. They're offering those. They're offering quilting classes. They are not paying for them. They are saying these are available, and these are available to our employees at a discounted rate. So is there something that your employees are doing or can do that exercises that right side of the brain, that creative side of the brain, that keeps up the innovation in your organization instead of the stagnation? And then lastly, again, there's that F word, flexibility. I have some level of flexibility throughout my work week. Trust me, if you work on flexibility for 3 months in a row, you will see a change in your employee development scores as well as your employee satisfaction rates. So a lot of my clients say to me, Hannah, I don't have the funds to pay you. I don't have the funds for healthy workplace habits. And I say to them, next slide, right? Here are some healthy workplace habits that cost nothing for you to do. And the first one is around limiting work and meeting hours. I know sometimes in manufacturing or whatever industry that you're in, you don't have a lot of flexibility around this. But again, looking at the meeting hours and what exactly you're using your meeting times for, and scheduling that as appropriate. If you don't have an agenda, don't have a meeting. If you don't have an outcome, you don't need a meeting, right? Second piece, and this is really popular, use of decision aids. I want a quick show of hands. How many people are tired of, at the end of the day, what are we having for dinner question? Okay, so a quick use of decision aids are recipes for your staff, shopping list for your staff, Instacart for your staff, using of decision aids, a quick FAQ of the week of daycares that have openings. Anything that is a decision aid or resources that your employees can actually tap into, that is a quick Google search and a quick board in the break room or a Slack comment, right? Practicing meaning mindfulness. I just heard from a meditation instructor that they are now doing an EMDR channel on Spotify. That's an option that you can do for before a meeting, or a quick box breath work. Whatever it is that you can add into the component of your meetings is key. And then those personal check-ins, making sure that you're asking people what they're actually doing. How are you doing? If someone says fine, I have a newsletter right now on LinkedIn about what to do when someone says you're fine. Take a look at that. And then sharing your struggles. Again, how you utilized EAP, how you used your employee benefits. If you had a good experience with a procedure, sharing that, sharing doctors' resources. And lastly, supporting job crafting. How many of us have a lot of job openings that are just sitting there, right? And nobody is applying for them, or it's not the right job. So what we've been doing is working with organizations to support a new job crafting model where we're actually redoing the job description for our future workforce. We're planning ahead. So how does burnout relate to upskilling and reskilling? Well, my argument for this whole conversation is it's not always about being overworked. It's about being underpurposed. And I really view upskilling as reskilling as who do we have on the bus? What skills do they need to proceed or succeed in their career? What skills do we need as an organization? And then it's almost like a dating game. How does that match and who's going to provide that? I also know how frustrating it is as an HR professional to feel like you're on an island yourself. Depending on the company size that you have, you could be a person of one that does 4 jobs, or you could have multiple roles in your organization. But I'm a firm believer as a manager of 20 years that I needed to be a huge partner to my HR partner to know how I can remove barriers for them. And they needed me to know my workforce, to know what skills they actually needed and had. So I know you guys know this because you guys are all gurus, but those people who don't know what upskilling and reskilling is, upskilling involves expanding the skill set employees already have, right? So future development conversations. Reskilling is about teaching employees new skills, right, for new positions or alternative roles. And this often comes with restructure or change in strategy. So I'm sure you're very familiar with the tools for the jobs, but I actually put these on here because I wanted to share 2 startups that I'm working with. One of the startups is an AI startup who's basically predicting if I am friends with Tana at my plan of business and Tana leaves to go to another organization, immediately my manager gets a ding. Hannah is on alert. She's burning out, her best friend left, what are we gonna do to keep her? Now, hopefully you already know this, hopefully you're having those stay conversations, but there are analytics and tools out there that are really cool. They're gonna be doing some predictive analytics. The other startup that I'm working with right now is basically when an employee is hired, you ask them what type of projects fuel you, what are you interested in, what skill set do you have? For example, if you know you wanna write a book or you've always wanted to write a book or start a podcast, is there someone in the communications department you can shadow? Is there a brief that you can write? Is there a job description you can craft? And that is a database that then, when there's a project that comes up, the first thing they do is, I need a writer. Oh, it's so-and-so in HR who's actually really talented and has written a romance novel. Whatever it is, there are companies out there that are now predicting really cool things in regards to reskilling and upskilling. One of the things that's often missed, and I was in the room making a lot of these decisions when we were hiring and looking at database systems for our HR teams, was that the tools were not personalized nor created or curated for people who had autism spectrum, kinesthetic learners, auditory learners. So what are we doing and what is your organization doing to ensure that your platforms are not only content rich, but they're actually able to apply the skills that employees are needed to do the job? A perfect example is EH&S training or MSDS sheets. How many of us love that training? And it's usually a computerized system that consists of how do you dispose AA batteries, or how do you what is this chemical, or where's the eye wash station, right? So it's really figuring out, is there a creative way to deliver that skills development and actually know that instead of clicking that ABCD multiple choice, that someone is actually doing it in a fun and creative way. And lastly, I mentioned this earlier, rewards and being rewarded built in. There's a cool new AI tool called Hello Taco. And it's a reward system that if you actually do some of your LMS modules or you do some of your training, that they will give you Uber credits, Groupon. They'll give you Uber Eats. They'll give you, all these different coupons and rewards that will actually apply to your everyday life. So that's a pretty cool startup. I don't work for them, by the way. So we always talk about HR not doing everything alone. And again, this depends on your organization and truly how your setup is. But I propose that the team for the future is a mixture of these 5 people: the HR manager, the DEI, the L&D, and the frontline manager. And the reason why I want the frontline manager in the room is because they are ultimately responsible for the training and development of the employees, not just HR. I want to make that very clear. And the director and C-suite, they also need to be in the room because they need to know why you need an LMS system that tailors to sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. They also need to hear from the employee, who should also be part of these meetings in a different capacity, and depending on union status, what they actually want and need, and what LMS systems are working, and what training systems are not. Because that's a built-in avenue and discussion for creating a new plan that you may need to pivot. We obviously need role clarity in relation to who's on the bus and what position is driving the bus, who's in the passenger seat, and who are the kids in the back, right, bringing snacks, causing a ruckus. But it's really important that you view this team as the listening and learning team. Your job is to know boots on the ground, firsthand, what's actually working. If people are not getting their trainings done or they're just checking a box, you want to know why and what other systems would work. And you also want to know from the employee lens, if they were to design a process or system, what would it be? And this is often a step that's missed is our employees are our customers, and we've got to get it right because we're just going to have to keep redoing it, right? And it's okay to pivot and learn, but if we asked our employees in the first place what's working well and what isn't, then we would save a lot of time and heartache. So here's my proposal, right? Take it as you will. If you are looking for a strategy on how to upskill and reskill, this is what I'm asking a lot of my clients to do. I'm asking the people that I just shared with you, those roles, to meet monthly. They're looking at their focus dashboard, right? If it's a company that may not have leveraged technology yet, it may be an Excel spreadsheet. It may be a really cool AI template that says, what someone's favorite color is and what their dream, role is. Whatever it is, whatever the dashboard is that you guys are looking at as a team, it's identifying what areas do we need of a development, what tools are we gonna have, who's responsible for what, and then most importantly, what is the communication strategy to our employees about the fact that we've heard you need women's health issues, we've heard you that you need more coaching and development, we've heard you that this, and this is what we're doing about it, right? Because employees want to hear that you're listening, and not only that you're listening, but you're implementing something new. Otherwise, they'll leave. And lastly, what does the action plan actually look like, right? Who's going to be responsible? And then what's senior leadership's role in managing that at the board level or basically getting the funds needed from that 20% turnover rate, right? To actually create an action plan and a template to move forward for an upskilling and reskilling plan. So, when I go into organizations, one of the first thing I do is I shadow HR folks, shadow the employees, I do shadow shifts, and I ask people at the front desk level, to the housekeeper, to the CEO, what's your learning model? And they all look at me like, I don't know, what should I say? And I say, well, how do you guys learn here? What's the philosophy? What's the culture like? Again, they look at me like, So I've proposed in most of the organizations that I work with a very simple model. A learn, a practice, and an apply. And a lot of organizations miss the practice. They say you need to get your EH&S module done by next month. If you do it, we'll enter you to win some prize, right? But I actually think and know firsthand that the practice is actually the most important. It's the hardwiring process that employees need to say, I've read it, I've done it, I can demonstrate it, and by the way, I've applied it to my regular everyday life, and so-and-so gave me feedback, and I've changed my tactic or strategy. So it's simply learning, input receiving, giving an opportunity to practice. This is really big with role playing. Maybe you have a conference room, maybe you set up Zoom meetings where your leaders and managers start learning how to coach their employees. If you don't have the funds to hire an external consultant, look at who you have as bench strength and say, I'm going to invest in a role-playing practice strategy so that my employees can get comfortable, and to the point of the previous, the two speakers back, getting comfortable having those tough conversations. Because we can't ask people to have conversations if we don't give them the time, the place to practice. And oh, by the way, feedback like, hey, your intro was really good, your tone of voice was great, but the employee didn't do the reflective listening portion, which is key, because that means then the employee is actually internalizing it and providing that reflective listening. So if you don't have a learning model, I would propose this is a quick and easy one for you, right? And then it also builds the bench strength for you to know, who do I have in my team as HR managers or even managers who can actually do role playing or feedback. Quick tip, if you have a complainer in your leadership team, give them the feedback job, but teach them how to do the feedback really nicely, but play to the strengths of your employees. We don't always have the luxury of terminating employees because we don't like the way they are or who they act or if they're analytical or they're too direct. Play to their strengths and give them a role that's going to make them succeed and flourish. And then in order to actually apply a learning model, you got to have the culture, right? And those recruiters in the room, thank you so much for being here. It's all about hiring curious people, right? When people are coming to an interviewing now, you're not asking them, what do you see yourself in 5 years? They're asking you, where do you see me in 5 years? What is my level of upward mobility? What does your succession planning look like? I'm telling you, the Gen Zers are asking cool questions. I'm like, whoa, help me. So hiring those curious people, giving them feedback, teaching them as a CEO and a manager, learning how to receive feedback, I'm telling you, that'll make a difference between a good manager and an outstanding manager. And then reward continuous learning. On one of the slides that's coming up, I'm going to tell you a story about a client that I'm working with right now. Can't say their name. But we have started to do something that's kind of fun, right? We're starting to reward people making mistakes and learning from them. And lastly, leading by example. We need to no longer just say, what is our managers doing? Let's watch what they're doing. Let's watch what our peers are doing and try to lead from a lateral, top-down, and horizontal level, right? That's what's going to be successful. So this is what I was just saying, coming up. This is the Top Banana Award. I got hired by a large organization in town. You may go there if you travel to and from. And they were struggling with organizational effectiveness. Let's face it, they were struggling. They had a big, huge remodel going on, and they needed some vigor and energy into the world. So I decided to introduce the Top Banana Award, because they had a lot of departments blaming, the check-in person or the security person or the parking person outside who yells at you when you park and you're picking someone up at the airport, right? And so it was a constant blame game of all these different departments. And I said, well, what do you do when someone makes a mistake? And then they share with the other team what that mistake resulted in and what they learned from it. And they're like, well, sometimes they get written up, and then most of the time people don't say anything because it's a culture of let's act like we're being open, but we're not. And so I started the Big Banana Award, the Top Banana Award. And I brought it to their leadership team, and I said, I want someone to stand up and tell me their biggest mistake that they made this year, and I'm going to give you an award. And that started, and now it's going around this organization's culture, and they're starting to reward and reinforce making a mistake and learning from it, right? Because we cannot tell employees that it's okay to make mistakes if we're not reinforcing it, right? And we're not reinforcing that learning. I want us to go back to the employee at the center of the universe. The secret to upskilling and reskilling is to design a product your employees really like. Again, each of you are an employee in this room. And I not only see you as a human being, I see you as your role, but I also see your responsibility as ultimately an employee. And when we're going through the next slides, I want you to think through the training and the development and the upskilling and the reskilling that you need, you, sitting in this chair, to succeed in your role, okay? I want you to think of it from that lens, but also from the employee lens. So, you're gonna be the black circle, right? You're putting yourself at the employee, you're the center of this. These are a little bit fuzzy, I'm not sure why, but the first one is all about, are you an employee that needs an internal training program, right? So are you an HR manager? I just met a new HR manager. Welcome to HR. And are you a person that needs an internal training program, right? As a new employee, is this something that your organization can part on you? The second piece is, do you need an external workshop or seminar? Do you need a Hannah? Do you need a Mike? Do you need a Katie? Who do you need? Do you need AI? Do you have someone that needs to come into your culture and provide a seminar? Thank you, PHRMA, for putting this on. The biggest piece is, do you have a toxic culture? right? Do you have cross-departmental departments that are not getting along, right? There's backbiting. You're blaming the first part of the baton, but the last part of the baton you're taking great credit for, right? So is there a cross-departmental rotation, a shadowing shift that you can actually do to improve your role? Is there a manager or leader right now in your organization that you're like, I think they have a good pulse on their team. I need a HR partner. So you invite them to coffee, right? Or lastly, is there a certification program? Do you need CEUs? What is out there that's gonna help you feel like you are confident in your role and that you're not wanting to look for another job or you're not wanting to feel the waters out there? And really figuring out in your organization, is this an internal problem or is it an external problem? And then who are the people on the bus that are actually gonna get us there, right? Who is the role that's going to fill that void? When you're meeting for that monthly meeting, if you decide to adopt my philosophy, on your spreadsheet or your dashboard, whatever you're using, you have who needs to be reskilled and upskilled. That's the easy part. The harder part is who's gonna do it, right? If you are an HR person of one, can't be you. So who are you creating partnerships with in the community to call a Hannah or call a Katie or call whoever to provide resources into your organization that will fill that void? And I implore you and ask you to start thinking that about who's your emotional bench strength as an HR person, who's in your Rolodex now that is going to kind of create your HR island, right? HR often tells me when I shadow them and I wear jeans or whatever, I just hang out with them, I take them to lunch and I say, what's your biggest pain point? And they say to me, buy-in. Buy-in from leadership, or it's your job, or I feel like I'm on an island, or I have so many things I'm working on, I can't get laser focused. And I talk to them a lot about influence and managing through influence and how to do that. And I promised you today I won't talk about philosophy or numbers or the future of this. I'm gonna tell you exactly what to do right now to build some influence in your own organization. And here's the steps. The first one is, what is your goal and what is your end result? If you are adopting the philosophy that I put forward in that management and leadership meeting, you are gonna ask that senior leader who's there, what's my 60, 90, and 180-day plan? You are the leader, what should I focus on? The second one is, you're gonna go back to the slide deck and you're gonna see that the ROI of not doing anything is 20% of your payroll. Times that, get that dollar from, AP, finance. Times that number by 12, add 20% to it, and that is what you are losing. So when people say, we don't need HR at the table, you say, here's the ROI, it's $2.5 million. So you have that number. It looks like that part didn't get corrected. It's okay. And then third is assembling a team of champions. If you remember anything from my conversation today, other than don't burn out and be on the bathroom floor, the next thing I want you to remember is you are not on an HR island, and if you want to be on an HR island, let's bring the right people with you. Assemble your team of champions. Who is that employee that's a fabulous mentor and that tells you the real deal about your benefits suck or you could be doing this or XYZ? Use those complainers to your advantage. The second one, you want to get laser focused. You want to start taking a manager or leader to lunch or coffee and say, I want to pick your brain. What am I doing well? What am I not doing well? What can I help you with? How can you remove barriers? And here is what I need from you. And then you're going to use those people and you're going to say, what type of proposal do we need for an upskilling and reskilling program? What have we missed the last 5, 10 years, 2 years, whatever? And then lastly, you're going to actually pilot it. You are not going to just gather this information and put it on the shelf for when they call on HR and say, we need to do reskilling and upskilling, because we've already missed the boat of an entire duration of time where we haven't actually piloted something. And when I go into organizations, I ask them, how many pilots do you have going on? And they look at me like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I say, well, what's this department doing? What's this department doing? Well, we don't roll that till October. Well, why not? October's too late. We already know that it's not going to work, right? So different departments, don't be afraid to pilot some new things and some ideas and say, is this working? And if not, pivot and then pilot it again, right? We are reinforcing that learning behavior. We're reinforcing mistakes that they are not only important, they are paramount. I want to give you some client success stories because you're probably like, okay, how's this actually worked? I worked with a company who was expanding their leadership skills, right? One of the best and most important things is a lot of people struggle with succession planning. We have a lot of people who have chosen to retire early. COVID's kind of sent them over the edge. But then we have a lot of Gen Zers and other people coming up who have a lot of energy and they want that job. But we don't have a plan to get there. So I worked with an organization who identified that they had really key leaders in the senior leadership team that were actually leaving. I worked with the leadership team and they said, we have 4 or 5 bright stars that really deserve to move up, but they need the XYZ skills to get there. So I partnered with L&D. We asked them who can do the coaching and development. We actually created shadowing shifts so that the people who were seasoned, who were departing, and who were retiring felt good about the person sitting in their chair. They taught them how to be at the meeting, what to expect, the senior leaders to watch out for, right? They taught them the sticks and the bricks to actually do the job. And ultimately, those people were able to retire. They felt a sense of camaraderie. They didn't feel like someone was taking their job. And the new people knew already. They were doing the job. By the time they started, they were comfortable, right? And so the pipeline was filled, which provides reassurance to the employees who have stayed around for years, who are waiting for those moments to finally say to the organization, and the organization to say, I see you, I'm investing in you, and it's your time. Second example, this is my favorite one. A company came to me and said, we're going to lay off a bunch of customer service folks. We need salespeople instead. So I said, give me a chance, give me 90 days, let me see if I can save these people. I asked the customer service people, who is my pushiest salesperson here? A couple of them volunteered and said, we want to be sales staff. Is there a raise attached with this? And the answer was yes. It's not only reskilling, you also get a raise, and you will not be laid off. We had the team that was identified. They started to be trained. We identified those skills gaps. Here's the kicker. We didn't have anybody else in the organization that had done this before. So I asked the L&D team, do you guys know anybody from an HR conference or anywhere you've worked before that has done this successfully? L&D person raised their hand and said, Ashley, I do. Reached out to that organization and they said, come and shadow us. We'll show you what we did. We'll send your mentor over and give you XYZ and the blueprint of what to do. We enhanced their training, their communication skills. We gave them product knowledge. There was one snafu that we missed, which we then rewarded that, okay, we missed the gap. But then we got that feedback based on the pivot that we did, and we filled the gap. So we saved those people. No one was fired. No one was let go. People received a pay bump, and there were people who were really excited about doing sales. So this was a very exciting opportunity for a client, and they felt like it was actually an example of huge reskilling opportunity. Now, those are clients that I've worked with. I recently studied AT&T, and they found that half of their employees didn't have the STEM skills required to do the job for the future. And they had a huge, huge overhaul. You can Google this as well. I think Harvard Business Review did a study. But they found that they had to reskill 270,000 employees. Now, this was over a period of time. They also had to receive 174 new recertifications. They had to be certified in these STEM skills. So they reached out to several women in STEM skill organizations and said, we need help. Could we do a pilot with you? Harvard Business wrote up on this. And they realized that they not only needed practical knowledge, but they built in a mobile-enabled and self-guided curriculum that gave them rewards when they completed it. So they could do it from home, they could do it on a break, they could do it whenever, but they created a gamification so that they made it fun and created an opportunity for reskilling. So take a look at that when you have some time. I've talked a lot about partnerships and examples of reaching out to organizations or thinking of things outside of our black and white world, right? And my favorite is really around tapping into those trade schools, right, in your organization, or tapping into those community centers. When you think about those gaps of skills that you have in your organization, my favorite is partnering with a local community college to send my L&D person or my HR person to proctor one of the university classes on coaching and development, so then they bring their skills to the organization. If you become a proctor at a community college or George Fox or U of O or Oregon State, it's free, right? Sending you as an HR person to get more development, bringing back to the organization, right? It's free, bringing that investment. When we did the reskilling initiative from customer service to salespeople, I called AARP. I said, I need bodies in my lobby so that I can send these people for shadowing shifts. I need greeters in Kaiser Permanente lobby. We called AARP. We trained them on how to be a greeter. Nobody missed a beat. So people are always having complaints about how are we going to backfill, what are we going to do? Perfect example of creating bodies, creating opportunities, creating networking opportunities to reach out to our community partners and say, I have gaps, can you fill them? I mentioned the 2 startups, right? Hello Taco, another startup who is looking for HR partners and organizations who want data. If you guys don't have a great data system, talk to me afterwards. I have 3 startups right now here in Portland that are looking for free support so you can have your employee data, right? Talk with your HR folks and talk with your HIMSS folks. But that's an opportunity. If you're looking for a new way to determine what gaps you have in your organization, but you don't have the budget, startups are looking for clients, and you're looking for the data. And lastly, nonprofit membership associations, right? Things like PHRMA, HR support, all of the organizations we have, people at your table, what are some collaborations that you can tap into? So, we don't have that much time, but I wanted to just, amongst your table, since you guys have already met each other, and you're going to be having a happy hour together, if you could talk amongst your table for the next couple minutes. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. What are your partnership opportunities? As you think about yourself and reskilling and upskilling, and you think about your organizations, is there a community partnership that you can embark on? Is there one of the lists here that you could actually reach out to someone? Is there someone in the room that you met today that may have a really cool idea? So talk amongst yourselves for about 2 to 3 minutes. I will call you back. I will not do an owl call because I don't know how to do that. And then we will have a prize. I have a very special prize for a volunteer. So when we come back, I'm going to ask for a volunteer, and then we'll get the rest of the day going on. Go ahead. Go talk amongst your team. Collaborate. All right. So I'm going to ask for you to dive deep. Those last couple moments you got to be on before you hit the bar or hit the sun. And I'm going to ask for a volunteer to share your learning from today, right? My presentation. Share your learning from today, what you just discussed as far as a collaboration. And if you are brave and do it and you're vulnerable, you will earn a very special reward. So who wants to volunteer? Ooh. Nobody wants a special award, huh? Okay, all right. We got a runner here.
Okay, so identifying and learning from today. I learned one of the things is that our world is changing. With the advancement of AI, there is a lot of opportunity for things to go in either direction, but what we want to do is not remove the humanistic element from it. We want to take the opportunity to bring humans together and actually have them sit closer and change the nature of the way that they work with these tools, right? We also talked a little bit about, from your presentation, just talking a little bit about our partnership opportunities. I know in my specific industry, I would say, I am in facilities management. So there are a lot of janitors, day porters, people who don't even speak English, right? Some people who also are not very well educated, meaning that they either don't have education or they have primary school education. They don't know how to read. Some don't know how to write. And so there's a lot of things that have to be done to support the staff in that regard. A lot of them are yearning for those opportunities to learn.
Yes.
And so being able to give them an opportunity to do that, right? By way of these partnerships, filling in areas where we need to fill in for coverage in order to provide these opportunities by way of AARP volunteers, looking at community colleges for classes, literacy groups, to aid in learning and writing, language schools. I mean, there's so many avenues that we can go down. So that's really what I kind of am taking away from today, is just bringing people together, fostering that connectedness, and then fostering those opportunities through that connectedness and referral.
Wow, ladies and gentlemen, look at this guy. Well, you got to come up and get your gift. Yeah. All right. So I want to present, and what's your name, sir? Levi with, if you could open it up and show it to the audience.
Oh, great.
Woo! Levi won the Top Banana Award. Okay, I'm going to ask for one more volunteer. We only have one Top Banana. Levi is the only Top Banana today, right? But I have one more thing. I have a copy of my book that I signed personally. If you come up and share your learning, you will get a copy. Oh, I saw this woman here. What's your name?
My name is Dee.
Okay, perfect.
So what I learned today, I'm actually starting to transition in human resources, and it's my first time to attend a conference.
Woo!
And I am not working in HR right now, so I'm going through the certification process. And what I learned today, first and foremost, is that it seems I've been networking as well prior to coming here with other HR professionals. And what I'm noticing so far, and specifically what I've learned today, is that this particular profession and the individuals that work in this profession are very welcoming and warm. So the social skills are there. And so I am impressed with that. And I'm not American, so I come from a different country. I'm European. And as a European person coming from a former communist country, even though you can be here for many years, you are still uncovering and unpeeling that onion, and trying to really, really understand how things work here. And you can be here in the country for 20 years and you still have lack of information because maybe you didn't go to high school here. You don't have the connections that other people have here. And so even though, for instance, somebody coming from a European country where you might have had access to amazing education, for instance, I speak 5 languages.
Wow.
And I had mandatory physics, mandatory math for 8+ years, mandatory Latin. So there are a lot of skills there.
Yes.
But the networking and the connection is very important for somebody like me. So I think that it's very important for this, for people who work in this profession to be very open and understanding that immigration is not easy and nobody's giving you a map.
Absolutely.
And I believe strongly that in this time of day when we're competing with other powers in the world, it's very, very important to open our hearts to individuals coming from other places of the world, because like those transferable skills and extra knowledge that comes with that can be highly beneficial, because you get to see not only you're a product of your own former culture, but then you transitioned to something, and then you come here, so you have a different vision, and you can see things from different angles, and you can add a lot.
Absolutely.
So I'm learning that that is possible here, and I'm also hoping that more individuals from countries, former communist countries, will be allowed to thrive here with your support, and I think that that could happen.
Thank you so much. I love it. Thank you so much. Welcome to HR, to the community. I love what you said. Please come up about connecting your head and heart, which is what my book is, Hello, Head, Meet Heart. So thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. So thank you guys so much. As I close today, I know I stand beside you before, right, HR and the entire team here. I want to do a big thank you to Nikki and to the team. Let's do a round of applause. Like HR, it takes a village to put on something so spectacular, so I hope you guys are all getting the space and time that you deserve to heal and recover, right? And I just want to say, as in closing today, you know, you're all here for a reason. You all came here today to learn something. You know, take stock in what the speaker said and what the people at your table shared. You know, start to observe in Technicolor. You can tell that I love color, but start thinking outside, you know, your myopic lens. Look up, right? If I were to say to the woman on the bathroom floor, or the woman in the hospital room, to look up and ask yourself, is this truly, truly what you want to do, right? And then start gathering data, right? Be the boots on the ground. Assemble your team. You are not on HR Island. You have a community. You have people who are coming from different countries. You have people who have all different perspectives. And start collaborating with them and make moves that matter, right? Make those small micro moves that are going to plant a seed, and you're building a community. Continue to stretch yourself and continue to look inside, because it's all about creating alignment. You know, I didn't burn out because I was overworked. None of us in this room are afraid of hard work. But it is about aligning who you truly are as an HR professional or a person and saying, what do I want out of this one and precious life? And how can we build in the rewards for ourselves and also for our community and our employers and our employees? Because I believe that there is an extraordinary life inside all of us, right? Sometimes we all just need a little help to tap into it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today.